And so for each of us, where we have felt that irrevocable change, that irrevocable shift, that irrevocable, well, there's no going back to that. The question is, how can I open? Allow the boulder to be rolled away from the tomb and allow the light to move through me in a way that shows the light is deeper than anything that I have ever experienced. And so what happens then is fear is able to be transformed into joy. So for each of us to be honest where we feel the fear, but to offer it to the divine and let it be transformed into joy. Let it be transformed into light. Good morning, welcome. 1,000 welcomes to you all. And we are gathering today to meditate. Our topic today is how to feel connected, afraid, and joyful. And it actually comes from the scripture reading. So when Jesus' students, those who love him, realize that his body is not there in the tomb, how they feel when they encounter him is afraid and joyful. And so we'll be meditating on that. And so for each of us, one of the things that teaching tells us is if you feel simultaneously afraid and joyful, there's nothing wrong with you. So the close associates of Jesus felt afraid and joyful when they were witnessing this miraculous living light that went on living through Jesus. And so for each of us to be honest with ourselves, like emotionally, spiritually honest with ourselves, and just ask, where have I been feeling afraid? And then to love ourselves so much that we also open to feeling joyful, because the presence of the divine is there, deeper than the fear. And so we're opening to connect with the presence of the divine, that presence of succor, that presence of support, that presence of resurrection, that presence of renewal and revitalization. So for each of us, it's to be honest with ourselves where we are feeling fear, and then to be willing to open and go deeper to the spiritual joy and the spiritual strength that is open to each of us. And so I'm going to share a couple of teachings before I get to that scripture reading. So I came across a teaching from my teacher, Swami Nityananda, yesterday. It made me burst out laughing, and so I'm sharing it. So he was sharing it without laughing. He was sharing it like in a very serious, very spiritually intense way. Sometimes he would say things like, "When are you going to wake up? I'm looking at you with my soul-piercing look of love." And it would just be pure love sharing through him, but he would say that. And so in this, he said, he did not laugh, but it made me burst out laughing. "Do I intend to react every day for the rest of my life?" And when you put it that way, it's open to me to self-transform in such a way that I am free and empowered from within myself to choose something other than reaction every day for the rest of my life. And so I'll just share with you this series of teachings and questions that he had in relation to if I am reacting, what that means. If you react to anyone, you are not honoring your divinity. If you react, you are not honoring your divinity. And so just to allow yourself to notice, most humans have areas where you're sort of like free and clear in relation to reacting. You're like, yep, I'm able to look at that. I've kind of done my inner work. I'm able to be spiritually neutral and observe. Discernment and wisdom are still with you, but also non-reactivity is with you. And then most humans have areas, the yogis say that's an area where there's attachment present. So just to have self-awareness. Where are the areas in which I do react? And what Swami Nityananda says is, do I want to spend the rest of my life reacting? And the good news is that I have the ability from within myself to free and empower myself, to heal myself from this need to react. We will always be called to respond. So I want to be really clear about this. He's not saying that we turn away from the world. He's not saying that we put our heads in the sand. He's not saying be unaware. He's saying be present, be aware, be engaged. Instead of reacting, respond. And the difference is reaction can only be possible if I'm coming from my ego. Only if I'm feeling separate can reaction come. And so spiritually, what I'm invited to do is if I notice that I'm feeling reaction, that's an indicator. I can just notice, where is the attachment present? Because probably there's like a fear that's present beneath the reaction, or there's like a hurt or a sadness or a pain that is present beneath the reaction. And so if I notice that, then what I can do is say, okay, I'm noticing a reaction that's present in myself. That means I'm connecting with something other than my divinity. So I choose, in relation to what I'm observing in time and space, to connect with my divinity. And I ask the divine, how do you see this? I ask the divine, how do you respond to this? I ask the divine, where is divine love and wisdom in relation to this? Then you're free and empowered to act rather than react. And you see the difference. And so the Buddha talks about this a lot. Like if I see someone who's coming from a closed fist, like from anger or hatred, I respond in the same way. I just create more anger and hatred. And so it's not actually a solution. It's something that I can feel as a human. The Bhagavad Gita says, if I feel that, choose to withstand that. And it says, I will only be happy as a human if I am able to withstand the impulse that arises from attachment and anger. And so it's so much fun to be happy as a human. That means I get to choose to withstand the impulse that arises from attachment and anger. And so then if you see someone who's coming from this clenched fist, from anger and hatred, and you're coming instead from love, it changes the vibration. And then this person who's coming from the clenched fist, they're free to change the vibration too, or to be like, it's not very fun just sitting here being a clenched fist when I'm not getting the reaction that I expect to get by being a clenched fist, right? So you understand the dynamic changes. So you're actually changing the dynamic for yourself as soon as you choose to come from the divine and come from acting and responding rather than reacting. And then also potentially for that dynamic. And so this could be like in a family, or it could be like, I was walking in my neighborhood a few weeks ago and I walked past someone who was experiencing a wave of anger. Had nothing to do with me, I just happened to witness it. It could be anywhere. And you can just sort of neutrally witness and observe and say, okay, that's a wave of anger there. And you can have love and compassion and share blessings, but you also can choose to not allow that wave of anger into your energy field. And so we were practicing with that a couple of weeks ago. I invite us to keep practicing with that. So one way to do that, the candles are lit right here, the Easter lilies are right here. Breathe the energy of that candle into your heart. Breathe the energy of the lilies into your heart. And then neutrally witness if you are aware of someone who's experiencing a wave of anger. Just let it be neutral. And then you stay in that energy of love. You stay in that energy of light. You stay in that energy of beauty and wholeness. And then you're free and empowered. Of course the divine will respond through you. You won't be able to help it. You have talents and skills and abilities that the divine loves to share through you. And the key is, let it be that you're coming from your connected, divinely self-remembering self. And that's I'm acting, I'm constructive, I'm creative, I'm in contact with this energy of resources, this energy of resurrection, this energy of renewal. And so for each of us, just to let that be an indicator. And so other things that Swami Nityananda says, and I always smile at this because, I mean, this particular teaching, I think it was from 2007, and it's so timely. They're always so timely, they're always so fresh. So he says, I intend to experience the expansion of the consciousness of oneness. Know that the whole universe is permeated by the divine. Realize thyself in all and all in thee. We can rise above the consciousness of separation, or we can complain about it. And so we each just get to rise above the consciousness of separation, let go of complaining about it, because that just creates more of what we're complaining about unintentionally. And whatever you see, someone who is in that consciousness of separation, rise above it. Another thing that Swami Nityananda says that made me smile very much, he says, all reaction is self-reaction. Yeah, like another of those spiritual dynamite things that just kind of detonates, right? So whatever I think I'm reacting to that seems to be outside of me, it's pointing me subtly within. It's subtly pointing me within. And so a way to look at that is when I look at someone and I say, oh, they are thriving and succeeding, bless that, and then energize thriving and succeeding within yourself. And if you see someone and they seem to be energizing divisiveness or chaos, bless that, and then within yourself say, is there anywhere that I can clean up divisiveness within myself? Is there anywhere where I can heal chaos within myself? And then you will be neutral. You will still have wisdom and discernment and awareness, and you will be free and empowered. And so for each of us, we're giving ourselves this invitation to love ourselves so much that we stay connected to our divine identity. And we allow that divine identity to think through us, speak through us, and make choices through us.
Hi, my name is Porna, and I'm a part of the Awake Yoga Meditation community. If you like this content, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, and also consider subscribing to our Substack. You can find the link in our description below. Also, you can find us on awakeyogameditation.org for more information.
So let's look at the scripture. And I know that many people have heard this teaching for many years. If you have heard it before, I invite you to listen with your heart, and I invite you to listen as if you're hearing it for the first time. From the perspective of the yogic tradition, all of these teachings are ones that we can realize inside of ourselves. And so what that means is no matter what your background is, no matter how you would describe your faith or your religion or your spirituality, the question is, how can I live the inner spiritual truth that is being described here? And another way to put this is, all of the figures who are described represent states of consciousness which are available to all of us. So everything that is described here is something that I can potentially realize and live within myself. So this is from Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 through 10. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy. And so for each of us to tune into that, afraid yet filled with joy. And they ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." And a little bit of a follow-up from Luke. And this is from Luke chapter 24, verses 1 through 12. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them, who told this to the apostles. But they did not believe the women, because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away, wondering to himself what had happened. And so for each of us, we're inviting ourselves to feel the spiritual truth of these teachings. And one of the ways to do that is to feel sympathy with all of the figures who are described in these teachings. And one of the things that this tells you is the divine is always appearing in new ways. So this is how the divine appeared to these humans at this time and in this place. And when the divine appeared to the humans, it was unprecedented. They couldn't get their mind around it. It seemed like nonsense that the divine was working in the way that the divine was working. The yogis would say this does not only happen once in human history. This happens many, many, many times in the course of each human lifetime. And so if you think about it, there is terrible pain, there is terrible loss, There is terrible confusion. There is terrible sadness. There is hatred. There is mockery. There is torment. It seems like darkness is triumphing. And then what happens is the light reveals itself to have been present all along, deeper than the sadness, deeper than the pain, deeper than the confusion, deeper than the illusion of separation. The light appears to have been quietly working all along, deeper than what human eyes were able to see if they were focusing on the chaos and the meanness and the confusion. And so the story is telling you the light is there. The way that the yogis put this is that reality is subtle. The Supreme Self is always shining flawlessly. And the way that we become able to see the flawless shining of the light is by surrendering everything at the feet of the divine. And then grace makes it possible for us to see the supreme, flawless shining of the divine. And so if you look at the figures right here, that's what the women do. The women go to the tomb. And so just think about this. They're going with their grief. They're going with their sadness. They're going with their pain. They're going with their broken hearts. They're going with what they don't understand. And they're going to connect with love. They are there to connect with love. And so they're willing to move through the sadness and the pain and the sense of loss, the grief, the anguish, in order to connect with love. And that's for each of us. That's for every human always. If you experience any of those things, move through them. Go deeper than them in order to connect with love. And what they find when they do that is death has no dominion. The darkness is only temporary. Life immortal that shall not perish is always present. And in that particular time, in that particular place, the boulder was rolled away from the tomb. So for each of us, am I willing to allow the boulder to be rolled away from the tomb? Where have I been feeling blocked from the light? Where have I been feeling disconnected from the rest of the world? Where have I been feeling separate or cut off or held apart or not enough? Let the light roll the boulder away from the tomb. And with so much love and so much respect, again, in the course of a human lifetime, that's not only once that we get to do that. We get to build strength by opening again and again and again, allowing the light to roll the boulder away from the tomb. And then what happens is we emerge, and there's a new reality. And so I also just want to acknowledge, like, for these people who knew Jesus when he was embodiment, and who saw him, who stood at the foot of the cross, while this completely pure-hearted, innocent man was tortured and tormented and mocked and subject to humiliation, some of those students were able to be there with him through that. So just think to yourself, like, to what extent do I have the ability, no matter what it is that's here in time and space, to stay in love, present with those whom I love, no matter what they're passing through. And we can gain strength. We can allow ourselves to be strengthened as we open. So they had moved through that. They experienced that tremendous loss, and they kept going. And so for each of us to allow ourselves to keep going and to know, for those people, there's always going to be a before that happened and an after that happened. Like, it's an irrevocable event in their life, and their life continues with great grace and with great wisdom and great strength and great beauty. Their life continues. And so for each of us, where we have felt that irrevocable change, that irrevocable shift, that irrevocable, well, there's no going back to that, The question is, how can I open? Allow the boulder to be rolled away from the tomb and allow the light to move through me in a way that shows the light is deeper than anything that I have ever experienced. And so what happens then is fear is able to be transformed into joy. So for each of us to be honest where we feel the fear, but to offer it to the divine and let it be transformed into joy. Let it be transformed into light. The other thing that this particular teaching makes clear is there's an aspect within each of us that finds it easy to believe. Like the women here in this particular story, they're like, okay, don't understand, but this is my teacher, and so I'm going to fall at the feet of the divine and worship the divine. And that's back to what the yogis say. They say, give everything at the feet of the divine. So what that means is the things you like, the things you don't like, wisdom, ignorance, anything you have experienced, things you consider positive, things you consider negative, place it all at the feet of the divine, no holding back. And what we realize then is the subtle, shining, flawless light of the divine that is all pervading everywhere, no matter what humans are up to in time and space. And we're able then to be instruments, we're able to be of service to that shining, flawless light in the way that that shining, flawless light would love to be of service through us. And so just notice, like, what aspect of myself finds it easy to connect with this shining, supreme, flawless light of the divine that is always here. And then these teachings make it clear there's always another aspect of ourselves that's like, meh, I don't believe that. That sounds like nonsense. And so if you have that aspect of yourself, be honest and offer that at the feet of the divine too. And I'm moved because Peter gets up and looks for himself. And he also doesn't understand, but he looks for himself, and he went away to himself wondering what had happened. And so for each of us, it's allowing ourselves to be taught by the divine. It's basically, we know how it played out for these humans in this time, in this place. For us, it's right here, it's right now. It's going to the divine and saying, I see your presence so clearly in the face of my friend when my friend smiles. I see your presence so clearly in the flower, in the squirrel, in the sunlight, in the water, in the air, in the sky. I'm having a hard time seeing your presence in this diagnosis that I received, or that my loved one received. I'm having a hard time seeing your presence in whatever I'm looking at in time and space, where I'm having a hard time seeing your presence. Help purify my eyes. Help purify my heart. Help me truly surrender everything at the feet of the divine, so that I am deeply open to that shining, supreme, flawless light, allowing it to serve through me. I also would like to share that in Luke chapter 22, even Jesus and even Jesus's closest students had moments of agony and moments of self-separateness and moments where they were like, I don't know how to do this. And so I'm going to read this passage, and again, this is heartening for each of us. It tells us there's nothing wrong if you have those moments of agony. There's nothing wrong if you have those moments of self-separateness or this, I don't know how to do this. But just as Jesus and his students kept going, we too have the capacity to keep going. And so this is from Luke 22. Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. On reaching the place, he said to them, "Pray that you will not enter into temptation." He withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." An angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. When he rose from prayer and went back to the disciples, he found them asleep, exhausted from sorrow. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked them. "Get up and pray, so that you will not enter into temptation." And so a couple of things here. One of the ways to read Jesus' repeated advice, pray, so that you will not enter into temptation. What he's saying is, this is all the way back to the beginning. If you react to anyone, you are not honoring your divinity. It's that. He's basically saying, pray that you remember your divinity. Pray that you remember your spiritual path. Pray that you stay true to the light. Because he's saying things arise in time and space that make it challenging to remember your divinity. Things arise in time and space that make it easy to forget your spiritual path or your spiritual light. But he's also saying, pray and strength will come to you. And so for each of us to open our hearts and deeply pray, like if I have been reacting, if I have been feeling anger, if I have been feeling attachment, if I have been judging others, if I have been judging myself, pray. Pray that I be strengthened so that I remember my eternal self. And when I remember my eternal self, tears of love and compassion will stream down my face. And I will be able, with wisdom and skill and courage and strength, I will be able to act in creative, helpful, hopeful ways in time and space. And that's how the new comes into view. We each are here to help the new come into view in time and space. And so it happens by just being honest and being courageous and saying, I love myself so much, I love the divine so much, I love the light in you all so much that no matter what it is, I just choose to be steady on my spiritual path. I choose to remember the divine in me. I choose to remember the divine in you. I choose to remember the divine in all beings. And then what happens is, like, that's the grace that rises through Jesus. It's not the separate individual self, Jesus, that has to figure this all out. Jesus surrenders to the divine. He's like, okay, your will be done. So that's for each of us, to truly give everything to the divine and say, okay, divine love and wisdom, here we are. And we are here to help the new come into view. And so just keep opening to that and allowing the new to come into view. But also, if you are feeling anguish, if you are feeling that sweat is falling from you like drops of blood, there is nothing wrong with you. Be honest if that's how you feel, and pray. And what happens is, as we pray, that's by praying, we're opening to the divine. By praying, we're not holding ourselves apart. Like, you notice, Jesus doesn't judge himself. He's not like, I'm a failure because I'm feeling anguish. What's wrong with me? Because sweat is falling from me like drops of blood. He's like, I'm feeling anguish. Sweat is falling from me like drops of blood. And then there's non-separateness. And then the divine is like, whoosh, here's some light for you. Here's some strength for you. And what Jesus said, he said, this is not particular to me. He said, greater things than I do, you shall do. And so again, for each of us to truly open, honest if we're feeling anguish, praying, allowing ourselves to be strengthened. And he also knows the divine is asking him to go through something. He's not super excited about it as a human. He's honest about that too. He says, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. And yet immediately he says, yet not my will, but thine be done. And so that's the practice right there. Like, that's the path. And that's how we stay true. It's how we stay true to the light, and it's how we help the new come into view. And thank you all, because you do it every moment of your existence, and it is beautiful and magnificent. Thank God, and God bless us all.